Thanks very much, Nicholas. So I'm dreadfully embarrassed. It seems that that photo was taken a couple of years ago and I'm wearing the same shirt. So I think maybe the style at Target just hasn't changed. So Dror and I are basically going to try and show you how the fundamental tool that's used to build the content in the best network, Smart Sparrow, is actually used in practice. And the aim, of course, is to try and instill some confidence that all the academics and design professionals in the audience will be able to use it very, very easily. My mother did warn me when I was a little boy never to do live technology on stage, but nothing could be more terrifying than climbing Mount Gower on Lord Howe Island, where I cried like a baby on the precipice. So nothing can go wrong. So Dror and I'll start by introducing Dror. Dror is going to chat to you about, give you a brief introduction to Smart Sparrow, and then I'll see if I can actually get it to work.
Thanks, Gareth. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dror. I have lots of titles in that diagram, trying to persuade everyone I'm not just the CEO of Smart Sparrow. In fact, this company was started as a research project that became a research center. And then in 2011, we worked with many academics in many universities here in Sydney and in Australia, as well as in America, where it became clear that as an academic research-focused team, we would not be able to meet the demand and serve the needs of this innovation. And we decided to spin it out as a company, me and my colleagues from the research center, and we were fortunate to have gone on a very exciting journey. Recently, I am now holding two other kind of associative positions at Arizona State University, where I co-direct a center we call Education Through Exploration, as well as co-supervise a PhD student at the University of New South Wales with my association as an adjunct lecturer. As you see, there's some sort of a symbiotic relationship between Smart Sparrow and the best network, and it's important for us to explain what is what and how it works. So I will just briefly explain what is Smart Sparrow, and I'm literally going to read it off the screen. Smart Sparrow is a learning design platform for next generation courseware. So we're not thinking about learning experiences as reading something. We're thinking about a bit more than that. Specifically, you can create amazingly engaging and adaptive learning experiences and then continuously improve them using analytics. The effect of that is that students are better supported and more motivated to succeed, and a crucial success factor has been our focus to try to make it in such a way that the faculty members are feeling empowered. So you hear me talking about learning design or design platform. And I also think we heard Professor Jacobs mentioning a design approach to designing the education systems of the 21st century. What do we mean with a learning design platform? So by analogy, I'll give you a few examples. So you can imagine how a tool such as AutoCAD enables architects to imagine and bring to life the cities of the future. A tool such as Photoshop, a design tool, really empower people to deliver really powerful messages. A tool such as 3D authoring tools such as Maya revolutionized the way we tell stories. And of course, simple tools like PowerPoint, simple design tools like PowerPoint or Keynote are the cornerstones of masterful presentations that changed the world, such as, of course, Steve Jobs launching the iPhone onto the world. So when we think about what a learning design platform can do to a new generation of educators that can basically help them use the technology to teach smarter. Now, what does teaching smarter mean? And this is where I'm segueing to hand it over to Gareth. We think that we all know the answer intuitively. What is a great learning experience? So what is a great teaching experience? And we think this picture embodies that. What makes it so great, right? It's a private lesson. There's a problem solving. It's not a lecture or reading material. Someone intelligent is helping you, guiding you, adapts to you. Well, how exactly is it adapting? How exactly can we build digital experiences that are inspired by this type of pedagogy? This is where I'm handing over to Gareth. Okay.
All right, well, thanks, Dror. Obviously, the image that you're looking at on the screen at the moment is this incredibly idealised view of how education might happen, with the teacher responding to the student, giving them cues, asking them questions, leading them, finding out their misconceptions and moving forward. And as I mentioned in my opening remarks, it's very, very difficult to mimic that when you have a class of 550 students in front of you. So, what I'm going to do is actually talk a little bit about how I got into using Smart Sparrow and how it has enabled me to try and mimic some of that which is encapsulated in that personalised picture. So, just to give you a bit of background, inspired by my colleagues in chemistry and elsewhere, I decided a couple of years ago to try and flip my molecular biology classes. I wasn't quite brave enough to do the full flip, but instead changed all of my explanations so that they became questions that I posed to the audience, and changed all the explanations so that the questions were things that the audience could respond using a clicker-based system. It's actually Socrative that uses their iPads and iPhones, which is a great way of using the technology that the students are bringing in of their own accord. And this is the sort of way that it worked. I'd take an old-fashioned sort of explanation. Here's a chemical reaction mechanism. It's between two amino acids in the formation of a growing protein. And I would normally, in the old days, just explain how that worked, and after about 3 minutes, the students would all be asleep. But instead, by turning it around to questions, I can start off by saying, okay, here's the opening scenario. What do you think which chemical group here is going to be the group that's going to want to attack? And I can pose that question to the class, and they answer using their response system. And then I can move on to the next question, well, what gets attacked, and then finally make the questions more and more sophisticated. So that's all fine. That's how you run a flipped class using the lecture response system. Now, here's the problem. What do you do with those responses? Because if you've asked a class of 500 students, what's the next step? Or do you understand the step that we're explaining now? And 80% of them know. What do you do? Do you move on, thinking, aha, the majority understand? Or do you think, oh no, 20% of them are lost already? Should I now take time and re-explain that concept to bring the 20% up? Or should I move forward with the majority? I'm now in a bit of a pickle, because I know that if I move on, I've automatically lost 20%. 20% are going to be asleep on the next slide. But if I don't seek to explain it, if I do seek to explain it, I'm going to bore 80% of the class. And this is going to happen every single slide I show. Every single question I pose, I'm going to have a split like this. So clearly, what happened when I flipped my lectures was an absolute stark realization of something that I should have known already, which is that my class is totally diverse. That I've got some students that are able to follow everything, absorbed by my every word, and some students that are literally lost after slide number 1. And therefore I had to try and find something that would allow me to explain my material in a way that was a lot more customized. And that customized approach, of course, is one where you pose a question, student gets it right, you can move on. If the student gets it wrong, you need to probe why they got it wrong. You need to re-explain, you need to remediate, and then you need to go back and check that they really have understood. And then they can move on. So I needed something that could do that. And through our e-learning team at Sydney Uni, I was put in touch with the fine people at Smart Sparrow, and that's what began my journey into creating adaptive learning lessons. And what I want to do is actually give you a very, very brief introduction into how that actually can work. And I don't know whether we put it on here. I'll just go in there anyway. I think it's in Chrome. Oh, is it in Chrome, is it? Oh, okay. Oh, there it is. I'm even logged in already. There you go. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just show you how one would make a little lesson. And this is a little lesson on peptide bond formation. I appreciate not everyone in the audience knows about peptide bond formation, but maybe we might learn something today. So I'm going to open this lesson up, and after I do so, you'll see that the way a lesson is structured is that it consists of screens, slides, if you like. If we're talking PowerPoint type vocabulary, what we have on the left-hand side here where it says screens, you can view as slides in a PowerPoint presentation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a slide or a screen where I'm going to pose the question. And then depending on the answer that the student provides, I'm going to go to another screen. First of all, let's pose that question. I'm actually going to insert an image to pose that question. If I go to the desktop of the computer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in my question. It's a rather large picture at the moment, but let's squish it up a bit. And I'm going to ask the question to the student. The students put a little bit of text in here. Which best represents protein synthesis? Okay, now I may have made some spelling mistakes there, but let's not worry about that too much. Let's make it a bit bigger. Yes, I did make a spelling mistake. The OCD in me can't let that go. Okay, so I'm giving the students 5 options here, 5 little pictures. Which one represents protein synthesis the best? Now, if I'm going to give them some options, I need to put in a multiple choice question. So I'm going to click on multiple choice, and then I'm going to say, do you think it's A? Do you think it's B? Do you think it's C? And we'll add a couple more because there's D and E. So having put those options in, these options are now available for the students to answer the question. I could, of course, have expanded on those and explained a little bit more about what the options actually represent. Now, having set up the question like that, I can now say what the correct state is going to be. So if you look down in the bottom left-hand corner here, you can see that I've got options now to define what are correct and incorrect answers. So let's go correct state. I'm going to say that if the student has chosen in the multiple choice question selected choice number 1, which is A, then the answer will be correct. And what I'll do is I will take them not to the next screen, but to the next question. So I'm going to take them to the second question. So that means that when answering this question, if the student gets it right, they will simply go to this slide here, which is another question, because they've proven to me that they do actually know what the fundamental process is in protein synthesis. Now let's imagine if they get it wrong. Let's imagine if instead they, let's add what's called a trap state, which is basically if they get it wrong. Let's imagine that they fail to, they get one of the other options, but I'm actually going to specifically go for option C. So needs remediation. This time I'm going to say if you choose for the multiple choice question, if you choose choice number 3, which is C, I'm going to send you to another screen, and that screen is going to be a little movie on the translation process, on the formation of the peptide bond. And I might even give some feedback as well. I might even say something mildly insulting, like you need some help. Okay. Let's see how that works. So what we can do is go into preview. And here's the question, which best represents protein synthesis? Let's choose A, and next, and it says correct, and moves on to the next question. Let's do that again, but this time, let's choose C, which we know should trigger an incorrect response. Choose next, you need some help. And now it's going to send me to this little movie on the translation process. So I can watch this movie of how proteins are made. This is happening in all of your cells right now. Don't panic. Thinking about it won't make it stop. It will. It's fine. So I can build up a flow whereby students answering a question correctly will send them down one path. Students answering a question incorrectly will send them down another. So in this way you can build up, of course, a very, very complex structure of decision making. You can probe students with ideas, with questions, and you can choose which responses you're going to give based on the responses that the students have given you. Let's have a look at that translation movie again. So here it is, the movie gets shown to the students. We can attach a condition to this, because you know what we don't want to happen? Let's actually go back. What we don't want to happen is that when a student gets this wrong, they choose C, they go to the next one, they can see the movie there, think, I know this already, I'm not going to bother looking at that movie. So they just click next and they're on to the next slide. I don't want that to happen. I want the student to actually watch that movie. So what I'm going to do on here is I'm actually going to say that the correct state is only fulfilled if in the YouTube player the exposure percentage is greater than 80%. So I'm going to make them watch it. And so they won't just be able to click forward and go to the next slide. Let's just see if that works. So let's go preview. And we'll choose C, so we've made a bad choice. We go and watch the movie. Oh, I don't want to watch this, I'm going to go to next. You actually need to watch the movie. So that's how easy it is to build up a structure in Smart Sparrow. When you're building the structure, of course, you can check at every stage that everything is working. There are many, many different options for interrogating the students. I've just shown you multiple choice here, but there's all sorts of things from text options to putting in sliders where the students have to sort of give a value worth on something. They can put numerical responses in, they can choose from drop-downs, all the things that you would expect to see there. The sorts of things that you can put into each screen are, again, all the sorts of things that you would expect. Images, YouTube movies like I've shown, web pages, audio, all sorts of things. So you can create a very, very rich environment, and at every stage, you, the academic, are in charge of the path that the student will go down at the end. So, what I want to show you next is how I've actually used this in my classes. So for example, if we go to one of my lectures here on eukaryotic molecular biology, and we have a look at this lesson, then we can just view it in read-only mode for the moment because it's a live lesson and one shouldn't really mess around with it. So you can see here's the lesson with multiple branch points, all sorts of questions being posed to the students, and where they go next is going to depend on what they've answered. Now the important thing though is learning or getting an appreciation for how the students are going through your lesson, and that's where the analytics come in extremely useful. Now, this particular lesson was released about a month before the examination in November. Guess when the exam actually was? Bit of, and guess how much interest there's been in doing the lesson since then? Not a lot. Now, with the analytics, not only can you get sort of gross things like this, but you can actually see how each question has been interacted with by the students. So, for example, the average mark for each question, the amount of time that the students have spent on the question, the number of attempts that the students have had on the question. And of course, reflection on these analytics really starts to tell you about how the students are responding to your questions, how, not just how difficult they are, but how much intellectual input the students are having to put into pondering those questions. So for example, this one here, question 10 on post-transcriptional processing, this question here, the students were spending a lot of time working on this question. You know, it really stands out very, very strongly. On the other hand, there are questions which the students are not performing well in, like this one here on RNA polymerases. So we can get a lot of information about the way students are responding to questions. If we click on these, then, in fact, let's just go back to the questions. If we click on any of these, then we can start to build up an even more detailed view of how the students are navigating through a question. So here, for example, we've got what students who have got the answer to this question incorrect. 96 students have chosen option D, and then when they're given another go, 38 of the students get the correct response after they've been through a cycle of remediation. But the analytics also tells us that 58 students end up giving up, that they have other goes and they can't cope. So the analytics that you can get by following the pathways that the students go through really help you reflect, not just on the misconceptions, the ideas that the students are having, but also on the way that your questions are being received and ultimately on how you've constructed the questions in the first place. So these are all really, really useful things about the output that I get. I can see how each individual student has performed. I won't dwell on the screen too much just to protect the innocent, but just to show that there's a tremendous variety in the way that students use this resource. Some students will stay for hours on the whole package and navigate through every branch, even getting questions deliberately wrong so that they can explore every single part of the maze that you set up. Some students will just try and get through as quickly as possible, almost like it's a competition to get to the end in a couple of minutes. But whatever the approach, it's all really, really useful information for us as teachers. So Dror, I wonder if I might hand back to you. Go back to the slides. This one here. And then, oh yes. One important thing to say. One of the things that's happened to me while I've been developing this stuff is that the realization that to go from idea to the final product is a reasonable amount of work. It's a reasonable amount of academic input to think of the structures that you're going to set up. It's a little bit more effort to turn those structures into a live Smart Sparrow lesson by putting in all the trap states and checking that everything is working. The latter part, though, is less work than the former. It's the design phase, the academic input phase, which really consumes the brain power. What I realized was that, in fact, the best people for designing the lessons were not us as academics, but in fact the students. So I actually took the brave step of experimenting with setting an assignment, or it ended up being several assignments, to the students to say, you've had some experience with Smart Sparrow, you've had some experience with the concept of adaptive learning. Can you now give me a map of what you think a good question design would look like? So I set that as an assessment task, worth very few marks, but this is an example of what I got back. And this is by no means atypical. I know that normally people put up the best thing when they're showing something, but I can promise you that this is an average submission. And if I told you that the students did this for a paltry 3 marks, it gives you an indication of the fact that they are inspired to do this. They wanted to engage in this process. So what the students have done here is that they've got a question, this is a multiple choice question, and they've added on a bit of preamble, and then they've thought about what would happen if people chose one of the 5 different options, and what pathways of explanation, retesting, and remediation they would want to go down in order to explain and expand on those pathways. Now, at the moment, at this particular time, I got the students to do this in tools outside of Smart Sparrow. I wish I'd got them to do it in Smart Sparrow, because then I'd actually have another 60 lessons which I could deploy immediately. Unfortunately, they created these wonderful mind maps in other platforms, and so now I have to go and actually put what they've done into Smart Sparrow. If I'd got them to do it in Smart Sparrow in the first place, I would just have the most incredible collection now. The key thing is that this is student design. This is the ultimate student-centered work. The students know better than anybody else where their misconceptions are. The students know where they're finding things difficult. The students know where they need that extra help. And it really allowed me as an academic to take that role of advisor, as mentor. So while the students were creating these mind maps to go into Smart Sparrow, these flows of logic and explanation, they were able to draw upon my expertise in a way that I'd never been able to use before. I was taken away from just trying to provide explanations for things, for actually being a sounding board for the way that they felt that explanations should be couched. So what getting into adaptive learning has done for me is it's really allowed me to change my teaching so that it's become so much more student-centered. And I guess the next step for me now, when I do assignments in the future, is that I will get them to do it in Smart Sparrow right from the get-go. All right, thanks.
Thanks, Gareth. We're not over yet. We're going to have an interplay. Just one comment is that we were always inspired to enable creative design. And we're talking about teaching better. And I mean, this area that was started in a research work in intelligent tutoring system. Who heard of intelligent tutoring system in the audience? It's an obscure computer science research area. It's a bunch of nerds like me sitting and thinking, you know, I can use the computer for much more than just putting a PDF online and think about it as education. That's not education, that's content, that's just static text. I can build, you know, games, I can build like interactive activities. Why can't we do that at scale? And the answer was, for me, when I realized, is that, well, because you need to do it in a way that the teachers feel empowered, that the teacher, that the academics can use this. So then the focus was, from my research work, was moving from trying to build intelligent tutoring systems, if you want, to try to build tools that allow others to create intelligent tutoring systems. And we always hoped that the students would do that. We knew it intuitively because we were students and we thought it was cool. And there was a generation gap between us and our teachers when we were at the university in our undergrads. So it's great, you know, after a few years to see this kind of come a full circle and to see how now not only that Gareth was able to revolutionize the way he thinks about his role as a teacher, but also inspire his students to follow that intellectual path. Today is a special day for the Best Network. We have a few announcements to make. Some of you already know the network and have been with us since the beginning, so it will look like, oh yeah, new things. And some of you who are just hearing about us first time, you will just see, you know, new announcements. So imagine like we're launching iPhone 7 and you've never seen iPhone 1, so yeah, it's quite a good tool. But if you see it, you see the amazing development that has been put through the dedicated work of all the people in the network. So we are launching today the second version of the network, if you want, the Best Network 2.0. And really, fundamentally, the original idea of the network was that if we're able to pair a community of educators that can able to share resources and have access to shared services, the total amount of impact this team can have will be greater than individual academics will be able to do by themselves. So there's certainly an emphasis of access to shared services. So today, we're finally launching the suite of services that the Best Network now offers. We're talking about tapping into dedicated people working in the center of the network, if you want. Think of all the schools in the outer rim and in the center that's shared resources and services. So, of course, we talk about training programs. I mean, Gareth doesn't know it yet, but we have a road trip for him. He's going to run around and train all of you in your... I'm just kidding. Of course, the craft of teaching moved from a stage on the stage that can entertain an audience to creating this sophisticated, engaging, rich, interactive content. You need help. You need help from instructional designers. This is a phrase that was new up until a few years ago, and now there's every school recognized in the same way that they now need IT support, they need instructional design or ID support. There are centralized instructional design services. So if you want to create a learning experience to your students, you can tap into these shared resources. Of course, introducing innovation into your schools require change management, convincing faculty and members that it makes sense, that they're talking to academics, finding the champions and put them on a stage to present. This type of services is something that you can now tap on. We have a lot of expertise in the network. We have people who have done it before, such as people who are here today. And of course, technical support, instructional design supports, and as well as student supports are services that are available to members, and as well as hand-holding on site when you do these things by yourself. So this was a little bit about the new services that we are launching today, and we are very excited to arrive to that place where the network is sufficiently large enough to facilitate that. And we talked about a community sharing services and resources. So when we talk about resources, what sort of resources are we sharing? So we talk about a shared Courseware catalog. So if you need to teach cellular anatomy, and someone who you appreciate and an esteemed professor in the field has already created and shared a cellular anatomy lesson, you have the ability to take it, to look at it, to decide if you want to use it, to change what you want to change, and then what we call adapt it and adopt it and adapt it to your own needs. So this is the shared Courseware catalog, you heard it from Professor Jacobs, Professor Hawkins as well. It is now bigger, it's better, it grew. It started with 4 adaptive lessons. We now 140 high quality, some of them peer review, rich interactive and adaptive courseware or lessons that are available to you. We worked hard to tag them in such a way that it's easy to search, easy to find what you need, and to find the relevance to you. And as the promise is, you can teach with it as it is, or you can adapt it to your own needs. To demonstrate the Courseware catalog, I'm going to flick it over to you, Gareth.
Let's go to the Best network. So this is a really fantastic thing, the ability to create a lesson and to share it with your peers, and not only that, but to actually see what your peers have done and use what they have done yourself. So if we go to the Best network, I guess I need to log in as me to do this. And I am in there. So if I go to the Courseware Catalogue, I can have a look at all the things that colleagues around the world have produced in Smart Sparrow, using exactly the same techniques that I showed you earlier. And if I like the look of something here, let's imagine I like the look of the polymerase chain reaction. That seems to be good for my teaching. Then I can have a look at it. I can go in and explore it. And if I like what I see, I can teach with it. Now, by teaching with it, what I'm doing is I'm actually adding it to my own workspace. It now becomes mine to edit and do with what I like. So if I go to my workspace now, then here I am with my lessons. Let's have a look at my list of lessons. There's the peptide bond formation one that we were just working on, and now suddenly polymerase chain reaction virtual laboratory has appeared. I can open that lesson, and that allows me now to do two really valuable things. I can now gaze in wonder at the brilliance of my colleagues that have put so much work into producing this fantastic lesson. I can look at the materials that they've used, all the work that's gone into their design, and I can gain an appreciation as well of the tricks and tips that they've used in their design process, thereby actually increasing my knowledge of the Smart Sparrow architectural system. So actually, I'm just looking at this now. I haven't looked at this before. This looks absolutely awe-inspiring. I can't believe how much work this person has put into making this. Designers
are helping them.
But it certainly looks like the sort of thing that I would want to use. And of course, it's now mine to adapt. So as Professor Hawkins was saying earlier, there's not many academics who look at something and say immediately, yeah, this is really good, I'm going to use this as is. But there's many of us who look at something and think, well, if it just did that, and if I could just add that and take that out, then it would really work for my purposes. And that's exactly what this enables us to do. So this lesson is now mine, all mine. and it exists in my lesson bank. It's something that I can do something with. But how would I add one of my lessons to the network?
Stay with us. They say there's the difference between a good question and a great question is that a great question is a good question that the presenter has already prepared an answer to. So that was a great question. Where are we? So, great work was done by the academic members of the network who contributed their time and efforts and collaborated with structural designers, with graphic designers. Sometimes there's interactive simulations such as virtual labs, so that means we also have software developers in the mix. In other words, you start getting an appreciation that to create this rich, interactive, adaptive course learning experiences that our students demand, it's really much more of a team sport than it is a stage-on-the-stage individual play. So the idea is that you got a team now. The best network can be your team to empower your academic and your teaching work. So we're talking about the new resources. So the Courseware Catalogue, if you want, the new Catalogue. There are the network also shared currently two educational technology platforms. One of them is Smart Sparrow, and one of them is the Slice Medical Image Bank. And I should mention that in the future there will be more educational technology platforms that will be shared by the network. We are in the baby stage of this network. It is going to be flourish and be great. So I'm not going to do a spoiler to my colleagues who are going to launch the actual new features of the medical image bank. I will just mention that if you want to learn about the world's largest and most sophisticated medical image bank solution, you should come to the Slice stream, which is right after the panel today. We're splitting. There's a breakout session. There's the Slice one and the What's in it for me one. So if you are in the disciplines that teach with medical images and want to understand what are the really cutting edge technologies available to you, you should certainly come to that stream. And as you know, Smart Sparrow is the first technical partner to the network. We also are excited to launch today a culmination of a lot of work that our engineers have been working with the best network, listening to what Gareth and his colleagues are telling us. How can we improve? There's two things we're launching today. The authoring templates. It is now much easier to create well-designed and great-looking experiences to your students. It simplifies the lesson authoring. You don't have to fiddle with things. Of course, you can create quick questions and information screens. and it just gets you to do more productive, quite frankly. That's the first thing that we're very excited to announce today. And the second thing, it's a bit more nuanced. When you actually deploy the courseware to your actual students, it used to be, somewhat of a technical process. We looked at that, we approached it, we saw that as a point we need to address. Our user experience designers, our graphic designers work really hard to make that really, really seamless flow. In the same way that whoever bought, Windows 95 and remember the pain of installing it, versus whoever bought an Apple, Apple iOS 6 and install it in 3.5 seconds, you can appreciate the amount of design and user experience work that it takes in order to streamline a process that's certainly sometimes technically complex. So today, we're launching something called classes. It's a very intuitive and better way to organize your students and deployments. You get all those information about your deployments to different classes, to different students groups, and so forth, all in one place. It makes it much easier to access analytics, which means, for example, that you can deploy the same lesson or I should say, 2 different versions of the same lesson to different students groups, and then compare which one works better. In other words, we are able to finally do active research of pedagogy and education. And if you hear today that we, in fact, Professor Jacobs said that we have awful ways to measure educational efficacy, it's because it's very difficult to do these things. Software technologies such as digital affordances and software technologies allow you to do fantastic experimentations and then continuously improve based on evidence. So this is today become much more easier, and the friction to do that becomes much easier. And of course, remember the services team in the BEST network will be more than happy to work with you and to help you in any such endeavor. So we mentioned services. We mentioned the resources. We are upgrading across the board. But fundamentally, the network is about a community. And today, we are extremely excited to launch a feature that we think will foster the community dynamics in an innovative and a revolutionary way. We're introducing something we call disciplinary loops. The idea is that while the biomedical education network has 1,500 professors, they often come from very different disciplines. Cellular biology and pathology and nursing is quite a different topic. We need a better way to collaborate. The tagline, if you want, of the network is to find better ways to collaborate. So today we are launching a better way to collaborate, which is called Disciplinary Loop. And I'm going to invite Gareth again to demonstrate what it means. So, this time it's going to be a bit more interactive.
Okay.
All right, so you go to the...
I genuinely don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, he's just so interested. All right, so here's the new homepage for the BEST network. What do we got here?
Okay, so I'm me.
Yeah,
there
you are.
So if I want to join, if I want to have a look at a disciplinary loop.
Yeah, what is it, right?
I'm going to click on here. And I can see there are loops for various areas.
So what is a loop, Gareth? What do you so far understand the loop to be?
I'm hoping that a loop is going to be a collection of like-minded academics who I can collaborate with. And
this was not planned, by the way. This is improv on the spot.
As you can tell. So what I'm actually seeing there is a whole bunch of lessons written by various people that I recognize.
So we've got a way to take the catalog that has a lot of content and then, segment it into a discipline. But we also have another thing here.
And I can see that all of those lessons would be of value to me in my teaching. Let's have a look. And I can see now who's in there. So how would I go about joining? Presumably I'd click join loop.
Well, do you feel that you should be joining?
I feel that I should be a player in the biochemistry loop. Have I joined? No, I've just clicked join loop.
No, this is, I think
let's see.
You might have just joined.
I might, there was no membership fee there.
No membership fee. Let's refresh the page maybe.
And that club just took me as a member without knowing anything about me at all.
Anything about you. So loops are, here we are.
There I am.
So loops are a close-knitted community of practice around a discipline. A loop has a loop leader. There's a communication channel. There's going to be updates when new courseware is added to the loop. These things will be announced in the following few weeks and months as we are developing this. This is our first venturing into really truly thinking what are the tools that a community of educators, a teaching community need in order to succeed. It's not just the ability to create the resources, it's also the ability to get updates about updates of the resources, to have a way to communicate with those who share it with them. And our loops is...
Who's the loop leader here? What if I
it's
wanted
yet
pose
to be
them?
decided, so we will have a chance to
All right. So what if I want to contribute? I've got a lesson that I want to throw in.
All right,
into the mix.
so let's see if there's a contribute button.
Contribute.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what is the first step?
So create a lesson, which I've got. Contribute your contact. Could I have to click there?
Okay, so in order to contribute to a loop, right now you click the button "Contact Us" and you let us know. So the people at the best network gets your information, and then there's a little bit of a peer review process. We want to make sure it's high quality, and then it will be done in a matter of a few hours or a few days.
But maybe I can do it from my home page, can I?
Yeah. However, because today is a special day.
Special.
And I just wanted to say also that from the best network point of view, anything that's getting contributed, we, through the legal arrangements we have, we would be asking the contributor to sign a release saying, understanding that they, while they keep the copyright to that thing they've contributed, they give a license to the best network to use it for educational purposes, and also to recognise that they haven't put anything in there that isn't theirs. They haven't taken a picture from a textbook that belongs to a publisher, etc. So these are important.
That's why the reason there's going to be a review process around these important things. However, today we don't gonna. So, Gareth, which lesson do you want to contribute?
Well, I'd like to contribute this one, but I have got lots of pictures there from things that.
So we're going to contribute it like for a few minutes only.
So we're going to take it
Only
down
a few
almost
minutes.
immediately.
Okay.
Yeah.
So our engineers here are currently
All right. So what
doing
do
their magic. Let's see.
Okay. So what do I
You
do?
go back to the loop.
I'll go back to the loop.
Yep.
Here. Yep. And then
Go back to the action. Just go back.
go back to just back.
There you go. So let's look at the lessons.
Let's look at the lessons.
Everybody. There you go.
Where?
At the top, right?
Oh my goodness! Quick, take it off. Take it off. It's new. All right. Good.
So we're going to have a panel very soon to be musing and thinking about this. So again, the power of what we do here is in the community. Individual professors, I know it personally, my colleagues know it, and I'm sure you know it as well. Individual academics who want to innovating have a very constrained access to funding and resources that are available to them. It's just the economics. If you want to do something amazing in your biology course, you're going to have to write a grant, you're going to get that grant, you're going to take a very competitive approach, you're going to get a little bit of money, and then in a year from now you're going to write a report, and then in a year later you're going to present it in a forum. If you think about the pace of innovation outside of this sector, it's mind-blowingly faster. However, if we come together at the grassroots level and have a community, a disciplinary community whose focus is to improve the teaching and the learning in its own discipline, the availability of access to resources, access to funding, access to services, if we centralize those, there's a far better way to have a systemic change, a better way to collaborate. So this is the Best Network 2.0 that we are excited to launch today. And our call to actions for you is come talk to us. There's people at the booth outside that are ready to listen to your questions, that can show you. Of course, you have access to this. This is all at best.edu.au. And we welcome your input. Thank you very much.